Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to talk a little bit more about chronic pain. I want to talk a little bit about chronic pain. In particular, I want to talk about arthritis. The overdiagnosis of arthritis as like a catch-all sort of point towards this as being the thing that you have. This is what's wrong with you. Your joints suck. You have shitty joints. Your joints are in pain because they're shitty joints. It's a very, very common diagnosis. Yeah, I did a little bit of research, like a couple minutes of research. It turns out 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 people, Americans below the age of 65, have arthritis. And above the age of 65, like 50%, like half of people, half of the Americans have the arthritis, which is defined as just inflammation, damage to the joints. And why do joints become damaged? Arthritis. That's what I was told multiple times. You have shitty joint genetics. You have an issue with your... Well, also, I've been told, you do these physical therapy sort of movements and exercises, and you strengthen the weak muscles, and you stretch the tight ones, and then you'll feel better. And if you don't feel better, well, you have arthritis. You have shitty joint. You have an immune system issue. You're just fucked up, and you got to cope with it, and there's nothing you can really do to solve it, and you're just kind of fucked. It's a very common sort of diagnosis. And I recently found out that a lot of it has to do with my fucked up jaw, the positioning of my jaw, the positioning of my bite. I went to a TMJ Specialist, fucking specialist, someone who's been doing this for 20 years, apparently. A self-identified specialist, and just all the more reason, I don't know. My experiences with specialists have been pretty bad, but they're not all bad, obviously, right? But a lot of them really don't care about trying to get to the root of what is wrong with you. And this guy, perfect example of this. He diagnosed me with arthritis. He said that you have an innate issue with your joints. It doesn't have to do with positioning of your joints. It's the joints themselves. And for the longest time, I believed that. And it really, just having him be so, even when I was pushing back on that a bit, trying to, but no, he was sticking to that your joint issue is due to joint issues, an issue innately with the joint, and not with the surrounding muscles pulling on the fucking joints. And that's what I have for the longest time. And it's been just it's been a really long process attempting to figure out what the fuck is wrong with my body. And just to have this dude confidently say that it's, your joints are in pain because your joints suck. I have amazing joints, as it turns out. I have really resilient joints. There were times where my joints were in so much pain, and I thought I had really shitty joints. But no, they're actually not that bad. No, they're rather, they've just been put in a really fucked up position. Because when something is thrown off severely, when your joints are put in a position that they're really not supposed to be in, they're going to be in pain. If whenever you walk, whenever you lay down, whenever you move at all, every breath you take, every move you make, if you're in a constant state of compensation, in a severe state of compensation throughout the body, but the muscles and your joints are not where they're supposed to be, they're not functioning how they're supposed to function, they're going to be in a good amount of pain. And that was something also, it really did, it took me a while because... I did research. I did some research, and I saw that there were bodybuilders that were swole as shit and able to lift heavy weight, and they had severe scoliosis. I've had scoliosis since I was a kid. Crooked hips, crooked spine, crooked everything, just all sorts of fucked up. And my curvature, relatively mild, relatively minimal. And it did not make sense to me that there were people that have pretty bad scoliosis, but in spite of that, were able to accomplish a fuck of a lot in the way of physical activity, pain-free physical activity, being able to do bilateral movements, being able to bench press with a barbell. And it did not make sense to me, the fact that it was just, I felt like I was at serious risk of injury whenever just bench pressing with a barbell with a very, very light weight. And it's still like, it just did not feel right at all. It felt like I was doing something that I was really not supposed to be doing, because it was causing just so much pain. And it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think that, when it comes to cases like that, where a spine is quite crooked, but in spite of that, you're able to perform symmetrical movement, I think a lot of it does have to do with the spine has been that way since a very, very early age. In those cases, it's they were either like developed in the womb like that, or very, very early childhood maybe. But when your spine is a healthy, symmetrical spine, and your joints develop in that way up until the age of like 12 or 13 or 10, it depends on whether or not it was a jaw injury that was never properly addressed, and then I got orthodontics, and then they put me in a really fucked up position, to where now my right side is compressed and the left side's very, very loose and unstable. And then that's what did it, or it was the orthodontics itself, because I had a really bad underbite, and they camouflaged it. And the way in which they did that was really fucked up. Not in the way you're supposed to camouflage an underbite. Yeah, it's not good. Arthritis. So now my jaw's crooked as shit. And I didn't realize for the longest time just how crooked my jaw was because of compensation, because the way in which the body can be pretty good at doing that, at like visibly covering it up pretty well. But then when you start feeling around, you're like, holy shit. Like my upper jaw is over here, my lower jaw is over there, and my entire it's very compressed on this side. You look a little closer and it's like, oh fuck, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And it travels down throughout the entirety of the body, the spine. All sorts of compensation occurs. And it has been such a difficult process attempting to figure out what it was. I'll tell you what it wasn't. It wasn't arthritis. It wasn't innately an issue with the joints. And I guess that's the point of the video. When it comes to many forms of diagnosis, many like broad spectrum forms of this is what's wrong with you, it's often not that black and white. And many doctors, many specialists, many healthcare people, many are good, but many also are very quick to just say, well, this is what you have, this is how you cope with it. There's no real, this is what we know about it. Your joints suck. That's just the and that's a common thing. Like, you're having your ankle just kind of fucking sucks. You can do sort of, but it's really important to consider the entirety of the body in attempting to address issues with the body, because it's very interconnected. And that was, for the longest time, I did not understand why it was the case that my muscles felt as though they were just torturing my joints. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and now it makes a fuck ton of sense. I was an orthodontist. Didn't take into account the positioning of the jaw joints. So now I'm just like really fucked up here, and then it traveled down. And that's a common sort of thing when it comes to forms of injury that never healed properly. It can also, a lot of it has to do with compensation of the body, the way in which the body tries to compensate for dysfunction.